Okay, so I'm going to show you how I created this particular image. The town that I live in, Helena, has a fireworks show for 4th of July, just like a lot of others. And we also have this pretty neat waterfall that's lit up purple at night. And most years, the fireworks are over the waterfall, which looks really cool. For whatever reason, this year they decided not to do that, but to do it from a sports complex which is mostly surrounded by trees, which makes for not nearly as good of a shot. In fact, this is primarily what most of my photos look like. My vantage point was terrible because I was thinking that the fireworks were going to be over the waterfall, and they weren't. You can see the lovely bridge down below and the power lines on the other side. Not exactly all that fantastic. Now, to get the fireworks shot itself, as you can see my EXIF data there, I did 14 seconds at f16 and 400 ISO. I had the camera set to bulb, so with a remote release, as long as I was pressing down the button, the shutter was staying open. And after I'd gotten a couple of bursts, in this case I think 3, from this particular shot, I released the shutter. So it just depends on how long you keep the shutter open and how many bursts you get. Your mileage may vary, as I like to say. Okay, so this shot is terrible, and there's just nothing redeeming about it. The fireworks themselves aren't really too bad. This shot here is of the waterfall, and it's okay, but it could certainly use a lot of help. This is the ultimate finished product. I basically created what the fireworks should have looked like instead of what they actually look like. So how did I do this? Well, first off, I shot in camera raw, which gives me more dynamic range. This particular image, as you can see, is another long exposure. It's 47 seconds at f8 and 100 ISO. I used the long exposure noise reduction in order to make sure it's not too noisy. You might see up here, up at the top, that I have some dust on the sensor. That doesn't look too good. So this is what I'm going to do. I do most of my editing first in Lightroom. I'm going to take and use the spot tool, which is pretty quick and easy to eliminate my piece of dust. The other thing I did was I pulled down the highlight slider to recover some of the lost detail over on the left-hand side of the image. Is a little bit more overexposed. I also wanted to really just kind of boost up the saturation, vibrance. I went over to detail here and I increased the noise reduction, particularly the color noise reduction. Long exposure images, even at 100 ISO, tend to be very noisy. So I'm going to boost up the noise reduction a pretty fair amount. You can really see it in the darker continuous tone areas of the image is where it really shows up. Alright, so that's how I adjusted that image. For the fireworks shot itself, the thing I wanted to do was really kind of separate the fireworks from the background. So what I did was I grabbed the black slider and brought it down. You can see my histogram is really shifting over to the left. I'm going to pure black, and that's okay. That's exactly what I wanted to do, is go to pure black. And I'll show you why here in a second. Boost up the saturation, vibrance a little bit, and I'm pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is edit in Photoshop CC both of these images. It's going to take them over. Okay, so now that I have my frames in Photoshop CC, what I'm going to do here is essentially break them out so that this layer is on top. I'm going to go over here to the second image, which is of the fireworks themselves. And I'm just going to use the select key, drag the fireworks over to, oops, it's not the one I wanted. Okay, so I'm going to drag the image over to the layer of the photo with the waterfall. And then I'm going to go over here to my layers palette. I can go ahead and close this, get it out of the way. Okay, so I've got my layers palette over here, and I've got the fireworks layer on top. I'm going to change the blend mode to, not darken, to lighten. Wow, all of a sudden it took all of that black stuff and removed it for me. It's like a very quick mask. That was really a piece of cake. And the reason why I did that is because I basically turned everything but the fireworks themselves to pure black in Lightroom. I'm going to do a free transform to rotate it how I want it. And I think I had it something kind of like that. And just kind of place it in there. Okay. Now that I've got my firework place, I'm going to go down here to my layers palette. I'm going to create a mask. Using the pen tool, I am going to essentially paint out areas that I don't want to show up. So I've got it set to normal. I've got my opacity set to 65. And I'm using a Wacom tablet, because that really gives me the most control. And I'm going to set my color here to black, my foreground color. And essentially I'm going to paint over what I want to disappear. And you see where the bridge was, it's kind of choppy a little bit. So what I'm going to simply do is paint out those areas. And because I'm using a pen tool that is, the opacity is set by pressure, I can really vary that pretty easily just by putting more or less pressure on the pen. And that allows me to really kind of easily feather the bottom of the fireworks so that it looks nice and natural. And I think I went over here on the background, selected the burn tool. Again, tablet pen, just kind of brought this area down a little bit. Looks pretty good. And then you can flatten the image, tweak it otherwise how you'd like. But this is a really quick, easy, took me just a few minutes to take two really terrible, boring photographs, combine them together, and end up with one pretty good looking photograph. And hopefully next year they'll return to doing the fireworks over the waterfall, which just looks better in the first place, and I won't have to do all of this. So I hope that was helpful. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking below, and you'll get automatic notifications on new tips and tricks.